Okay, thanks for your patience, everyone. We're gonna start now. So today we're going to be talking about how you can manage retainer projects within Mission Control. So whether that's like an ongoing annual marketing retainer that you might have with a client, or if you're doing a support contract, for example. So just to first of all introduce the speakers today. So I'm Colin Johnson. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Aprica Business Solutions. So Aprica has literally just turned 10 years old last week. During our time as Aprica, we've been a consulting partner. We've also been a PDO partner, helping other people develop their apps on the App Exchange. And we've also got three of our own apps on the App Exchange as well. Me personally, I've been involved in the Salesforce ecosystem for around 16 years. During our consulting time, we delivered around 500 Salesforce implementations. And as I say, all in all, we've been involved in 5 different App Exchange solutions. Joining me today, I've got Becky Stalker, who's our marketing manager. I've asked Becky to join me today because prior to coming on board with Aprica, Becky spent a lot of time working in the agency world, so has a lot of experience that she can share with us today as well.
Hi, everyone.
Okay, so in terms of the agenda, so we're going to be covering off just a quick overview of the professional services space. Then Becky's going to go into some of the key things that are important when you're considering retainer-based projects, and then we'll jump into a demo. Any questions, you can either use the Q&A in Zoom, or you can catch us on our Twitter handle there as well. Okay, so in terms of professional services, so it's no small market by any means. So the business research company back in 2019 measured it as almost a $6 trillion market in 2018, and obviously COVID aside, they're expecting it to be sitting around an $8 trillion valuation within the next 2 years. So in terms of where we find professional services, ultimately, obviously, consulting companies, anyone who's developing software is likely to have a professional services element to help people get implemented, and marketing and communications, so around those agencies doing creative work for people, as well as all of those different industries we've got listed there. If you ask them all, they're going to tell you many different things around what they actually sell. So, it could be that they feel they add knowledge to the client, they're providing added value or a certain skill set. But ultimately, when you boil it down, what they're doing is selling time. So obviously, what we want to be able to do is actually have a system in place where we can really manage that effectively. So I'm going to hand over to Becky now, and she's just going to give us some insight around some retainer project interesting facts. Becky.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for that, Colin. So what is a retainer project? I guess the way that we would describe it is it's an agreement for a particular body of work that goes over a significant period of time with some sort of customer or client. And like Colin mentioned before, that body of work can be across a range of different industries and businesses. But today, what we'll be using in our examples when we go through the demo is mainly from a marketing or creative agency perspective. So, but you'll probably see as we go through that this approach can still be quite relevant, regardless of the business that you're working for. So first off, we just want to go through, I guess, like the key elements for managing retainer projects, and we've categorized them into these different areas from planning, resourcing, measuring, efficiency, and profitability. And we'll just go through now each of those in turn and the types of questions that we get asked quite regularly from our clients. So first off, planning. I guess this is the most significant stage when it comes to managing that retainer, as the sort of setup of it all is really crucial. So throughout the demo today, we'll be aiming to provide solutions to the following questions, which we know that will help professional services businesses with this stage of activity. One of the questions we get asked a lot is how do we know what to charge for a retainer? And I guess there's two different ways to it. So the main ways that you can budget for retainer projects are, firstly, potentially it's a situation where a client has a specific annual budget and wants the work and activity to fit with this on a monthly basis. And in that scenario, they're being charged the same each month for the retainer. The second is potentially a customer or client has got a specific project budget that may go over a portion of time. It may be 6 months, it may be 2 years, but then that budget needs to be sliced and diced specifically around the peaks and troughs of that body of work. So, for example, the project may need more work in August and September, and then it might quieten off towards the end of the year. And so the monthly budgeting there and the resourcing needs to reflect this. It may be that you're charging a lot more in August, September, and you need more resource against it than you are at the end of the year. Another question, how can we manage income versus resource? This again sort of changes depending on the scenario. But what is really important is having that sort of 360-degree visibility on the resourcing and your capacity at all times. You know, being able to see that all matches up, I guess. Can we build in setup processes costs? I guess this is something that, again, is very important, but can also be forgotten. You do need to consider, as part of building a retainer project, that there'll inevitably be a larger investment up front as you get sort of going on starting up the project. And how do you structure retainer projects? So one of the things that we have to consider, I guess, really is how to split the time and money against the activity. You know, we always recommend that regardless of whether you're going to on-charge it to your client or customer, that you always allocate a proportion of time against account management or administration. You know, this is time that is really important because it is, you know, it's a cost to the business, but it may not be something that you sort of on-charge to your clients, but it's good to sort of make sure that you can see that time is being used effectively and not sort of blowing out of proportion. And we will talk through this a bit more from a marketing perspective in the demo section. So once you've planned everything, next comes the resourcing phase. And, you know, we know that this can be a big sort of headache for professional services businesses. You know, who can I use? You know, who's got capacity? These are the questions that we get asked all the time. You know, who within the business has can manage this, and then also considerations around flexibility or holidays and sick leave. That's really important to be able to plan in to the resourcing phase. You know, there may be people that work part-time. You may have certain people going on holiday at the same time. So how can you sort of fill those gaps when you need to? We'll also be looking at what problems can occur when there's bottlenecks with resources. We'll go through some features where we can really identify the people who have got way too much work and delve deeper into sort of why that might be the case. And then also looking at, you know, who's on the bench, who's in the background that we can pull in to help on this project, and have they got the right skills. Next comes the ability to track and measure the activity in real time. I know from experience, a lot of agencies or in the creative realm will wait to the end of the month to sort of analyze. But what's really important, I guess, is to keep track of those things ongoing. You may want to review things like the amount of hours that have been logged, how much is billable, how much time is going into that account management administration bucket, and is that too much? Identifying those bottlenecks, you know, is there some red flags? Are we halfway through the month and we've already used most of the time that we've got allocated? You know, where are we over servicing and why is that happening? And then throughout this measurement process, what we want to look at as well is those efficiencies of the team involved, and if the work being delivered is being delivered at the best possible outcome. So how efficiently are you delivering the work, and then drilling down into the individuals themselves, identifying if there's any need for support, upskilling in certain cases. It may be that two members of staff have been given the same amount of work and yet one is more efficient than the other. So how can you drill down and work out who what's causing that, I guess, and understand why and be able to address it. Always looking to ensure that resources are being utilized effectively, keep the program moving forward, making sure that you can surpass those deliverables or those outcomes at the end of the month. And finally, the most important thing from a business perspective is the profitability, being able to review those retainer projects and potentially even justifying additional spend where necessary. So, each month looking at the profit, are we making a profit? What's the comparison between what we estimated the hours would be and what the actual hours are? Where are those areas where we might be over-servicing or spending too much time, and how can we sort of pull those back? But then also how that can overall impact future agreements. If you've got that analysis and that data that demonstrates, how that all these hours are being spent on a certain activity, there's potentially a business case there to increase your monthly retainer budget from the client.
Awesome, thanks, Becky. So what we're going to do now is just run you through, give you a quick overview of what we're going to take you through in the demo, and then we'll jump in and start taking a look around. So I'm not going to make you sit there while I actually build out a project, but we do have a couple of projects in there. So one scenario is where we are doing a marketing retainer with a customer over a period of time, and then the other scenario that we'll take a look at is where we might have an annual support contract where we've sold a fixed number of hours per month, and we'll show you how you can tie that in and be logging time directly from your support tickets. So we'll talk through the structure of the project, and then, as Becky mentioned, we'll be running through the different tools that Mission Control has to allow you to manage the resource capacity planning, and then from that measurement perspective, how we go about logging time, and then what tools have we got to actually to review the progress that's being made, and ultimately the evaluation. So with that said, let's jump in and start taking a look around. Okay, so first scenario, we've got a project here where we are providing a marketing retainer project for this company. So I'll run through the structure in a moment, but before we do that, I just wanted to take you through a couple of the settings on the project where I've created this. So really important around how we actually track the financial element, but also how we actually raise the invoices as well. So if I scroll down to the project settings, so obviously this is a fixed price project. So scenario is 120 grand over a 12-month period. So main thing here is I've set my billing rate. So my billing rate is what I'm charging my customer for doing the work, and my cost rate is what I'm paying my people to do the work. So even though this is a fixed price project, it's really important to be able to track this billing rate metric, because it will actually track the scheduled effort and the actual effort. So even though I've scoped this out to be 120 grand's worth of effort over the course of the 12 months, by the time I've actually built out all of the actions and delivered that work, I'll be able to come back and assess whether I made sufficient profit, or did I underestimate how much work was really going to be required. So obviously taking that into negotiations for the next renewal. And then in terms of actually getting the money from the client, we've set up our billing information here. So you can see I've obviously got a purchase order. I'm indicating that I need tax to be applied to my invoices. And I've chosen a billing cycle of retainer. So main thing on retainer is I need to set a frequency. So how frequently am I going to be raising invoices? So in this scenario, I've chosen that I'm going to be raising an invoice on a monthly basis. There are a number of other options there too. And I've specified the retainer amount. So I've agreed with the customer in this instance that we're going to raise an invoice every month for $10,000. So that's setting up the retainer-based component of the invoicing for the project, so we can bring that money in. Now, in terms of how we're going to track that, how we've chosen to structure this project. So within the project, we've got a few different milestones here. So as Becky mentioned, even if it's non-billable, it's really important to be tracking that account management work. So whether that's administration, meetings, just going backwards and forwards with clients. So in some instances, it might be part of that billable activity, but in others, it might be non-billable. But really important to be able to track the level of effort that you're putting in that area. So I've chosen to just stretch that over the duration of the entire project. Whereas these other things, I've got individual milestones where we're going to be doing some SEO work. So this is a very repeatable process. So you'll see that if I drill into that, I've basically set it up to have an action with a set of checklist items, and that's been recurred for the remainder of the project. So I've got the same thing repeating every single month. Whereas I've also got some other activity where these are going to be one-off pieces of work. So for example, we're going to be designing an EDM template. We're going to be designing a new ebook. And then we've also got a content plan in place that's been agreed with the client, where we're going to be publishing various content throughout the duration of this retainer period. So that's how we've structured the project. How that gets represented, for example, on the Gantt chart. I'll just jump over to this tab. So as I mentioned, obviously account management, you can see that that's just spanning the entire duration of the project. My repeatable monthly tasks of SEO, you can see within that month, I'm doing these checklist items, and then we're moving on to the next month, and it's just repeated month after month. And then as we scroll down, you'll see that content and those assets that we'll be generating and when they're scheduled. So in terms of resourcing, there's a few different tools that we have available. First of all, I'm just going to jump back onto the project plan here, and within creative and design milestone, I'm going to be designing this ebook. Now you can see here that I've assigned this to Blake. There's 40 hours of effort required to get this work done. Now, it might be that I need to pull in some additional resources because I've spoken with Blake and he doesn't have the capacity to get it done during this period of time on his own. So what I can do in this instance is use the resource assignment wizard, and this allows me to, so against each person, you can keep a track of what profile they've got. So what teams are they a member of, what skills they've got, how good are they at those skills. So using this resource assignment wizard, I can filter down and find the relevant people. So I'm going to be looking for someone on a specific team. I'm making sure that they've got certain skills that I know are required to do this piece of activity, and I can even search based on their proficiency within that as well. So if I do a search there, that's going to pull back a list of everyone that I have in the system that can meet that criteria. So now I can see their real-time work allocation, so I can work out who's going to be the most appropriate person or people to get involved and help Blake out with this. So what I'll do is actually drag myself down here as an action, as a contributor. So of Blake's 40 hours, I'm going to be doing 10 of them. So that gets added onto my schedule and comes off Blake's. What I'll also do is pull in Amy, and between the three of us, we're going to be doing this work, and Amy will also do 10 hours. So that gets added onto Amy's schedule and removed off Blake's. Now that's looking at that individual action. If I'm wanting to take a higher level look across the entire team, what things have they actually been assigned to do? So the scheduler is our capacity planning tool. So down the left-hand side, you'll see a list of everyone that I have a role record for in the system. So big long list of people, and over the page, I'm looking at a timeline, and right now I'm looking at 2 weeks, and I can see everything that's been assigned to each person. So you'll see here, I've got scales of either hours, days, or weeks. Now I can toggle between all of those, and within each one of those options, I can adjust how much of a timeline I'm looking at. So right now I'm looking at 2 weeks, but if I just go into my settings here, you can see within my days view, I could go right out to 12 weeks. So for example, if I just drop that to 6 and make that change. So what this will do is just extend the timeline that I'm looking at. So if I'm trying to assess whether we've got the capacity to take on a new project within the next few weeks, I can just broaden that timeline and then take a look at who might have capacity. So what I'm going to do here is actually just drop this back to 2 weeks just to talk through a scenario. So when we look at my record, so against each person's record, you specify how many hours per week they're available to work. So in this system, I'm set to be doing 32 hours a week. So over this 2-week period, I've got 64 hours available, but you can see I've been given 78 hours work to do. So I'm over allocated, it's flagged up, there's a bottleneck on me as a resource. What I can do here is actually just start dragging this work off and reassigning it to other people. But before I do that, I want to make sure I'm going to be giving it to someone that's capable of doing it. So what I'm going to do is just jump into my filters, and very similar to that resource assignment wizard, I'm just going to be searching for people with a certain skill set and team membership. So by applying those filters, it's going to reduce the number of people that I can see on the scheduler. So now I know each one of these people have the capability of doing the work that I've been assigned. So in this instance, what I'm going to do is actually drag a few of these off to Carey. So as I'm doing that, my hours are coming down, Carey's are going up. So the aim will be that I'll get myself back in the black. I'll remove that bottleneck from me. Haven't caused any issues with Carey. So I'm quite happy that I've managed to do that. Obviously, taking that one step further, I'm within my capacity for the 2 weeks, but I might have some bottlenecks during this time. So we also have the ability to go into this hours total view. And really, this just gives us a heat map of how that work's being distributed. So quickly allowing us to identify where we might have some bottlenecks through the duration of this timeline. So obviously you can see I'm heavily loaded for that week, whereas I've got some time here. So I could consider pulling some of this stuff forward. Now, obviously, bearing in mind, it might need to get done on these days, so I might not have the option of doing that, but I know that I've got people here who are on the right team with the right skill set, and they've got the ability to take on that work, so I could go and either get them involved as contributors or reassign so they can take ownership. Okay, so in terms of measuring our work, so you do that by logging your time, so recording the effort that it's taking you to deliver a piece of work. So many ways of logging time. What we're looking at today is the timesheet. So the timesheet will load up for an individual person for a particular week. It preloads everything that's been assigned for that person to work on throughout this week. So I've got this list of everything that I should be working on. And then over here, you can see I've already logged some hours. So what I can do is on our project, I can say that I've just had a 2-hour meeting with the client. If I want to add in some notes, I just double click into there. I'm just going to put in some notes. What I can also do is categorize this work. So what sort of work am I doing? So I'm going to allocate this to my account management category. So as I scroll down, you'll see I get totals for each day, tracking between billable, non-billable, and holidays, and I get a total for my week there as well. All of the time that we log gets recorded against the project. So we see a timeline of what's been happening and what's been getting done, who's been doing it, how long has it been taking them. So we get visibility of how we're tracking on the project via that burn down chart. So the burn down shows us two things. The blue line shows us the ideal delivery effort. The purple line shows us the actuals. So we're able to see whether we're burning through those hours quicker or slower than we should be. Over here, we get an indication of what the scheduled effort is, what we've done so far, and what we've got left to do. Obviously, this gives me an indication that I'm running on schedule, whereas if I was taking longer, these bars would be exceeding the scheduled, or if I was delivering more efficiently, they would be smaller. And obviously looking at one project there, but we can also, being built natively on the Salesforce platform means we can leverage the reporting and dashboard tools that Salesforce provide. So this is an example here where I've built out a few reports. So it's showing me here, how many hours did each team member log last week. I can see what categories this has been allocated to. So going back to what Becky was saying, how are we servicing this customer, and are we spending too much time over servicing it versus the amount of actual delivery work that we've done? So in this example, you can see the majority of work has been on account management rather than actual work. So could certainly be flagging up, giving us a red flag warning. If the account management is non-billable, we would certainly want to try and get an understanding of why it's taking that much time. And from that efficiency perspective, you've got the ability to track the efficiency within which people are delivering the work. So what this indicates to me is every time, so if I give Kelly 10 hours worth of work, he's actually going to be really slow at it. He's going to take about 17 hours to get that work done. Whereas if I look at Andrea, she's super efficient and she's delivering it in about 4.5, 5 hours worth of effort. So that tells me that Andrea is obviously a superstar for me. I want to use her where possible, because probably going to earn a greater margin on that piece of work. But it also flags up that I could potentially get Kelly to spend some time with Andrea and use that as an upskilling opportunity. In addition to that, we've also got this built-in role utilization report. So this shows us how each person has been working against their own target. So obviously, providing a professional service, your team will be set their own hourly targets. So what we can see here, so I'm looking at members of a particular team. I can see each person, how many hours they've logged, whether that was billable, non-billable, holidays, and so on. I get some summary charts. So across this period of time, this is how much time we should have logged. This is what we have logged. So obviously, don't know what we've been doing over the last few months, but and from a perspective of billable hours, I can also see that information. So then as we scroll down, I can see the information for each individual person. So I'm just going to scoot down and take a look at my record. So as I mentioned earlier, I'm set to do 32 hours a week. So you can see how many hours per week I'm meant to work, and then how many hours I have worked. And then that gives you a breakdown of whether it was billable, non-billable, or holidays. So I get my overall utilization percentage. So obviously, 28 hours against 32 gives me an 87.5% utilization. But what's more important from a professional service perspective is the billable performance. So obviously I was on holiday for 1 day, so my capacity dropped from 32 to 24. And the business expects me to do 80% of my time should be spent doing billable work. So of that 24 hours, I should be doing 19. In this instance, I actually did 20 hours. So even though I didn't achieve my utilization percentage, I actually exceeded my billable performance. So certainly looking at this line, too many reds and ambers are going to give you an early warning sign that you're actually heading into a cash flow issue because you haven't been delivering the billable work required to meet the budgets that you've set for the business. Okay, and then taking a real eagle-eye view of how everything's performing, we have our PMO dashboard. So this gives me two metrics, my CPI and my SPI. So the CPI gives me my cost performance index, tells me how I'm running to budget. The SPI is my scheduled performance index, and that tells me how I'm running to the timeline. Now, if these were giving me a figure of 1, I would be delivering perfectly to budget. Above 1, I'm doing even better. Below 1, not so good. So you can see I'm actually not doing great, but what I can do is also compare to a different period of time. So albeit small, it looks like we're starting to head back in the right direction. And similar with the timeline, obviously, this is telling me that we're not delivering quick enough. We're missing deadlines. We're not getting through the time that has been scheduled. And obviously running behind. So this will help us make decisions around whether we need to swap out resources, bring in new resources, or actually manage the client's expectations and look to extend the deadline of some of those deliverables. What we can also do here is actually drill into the individual projects, get down to the milestones, get down to the actions, and see exactly where we might be going wrong and trying to get that back on track. What you can also do here is access your revenue recognition. So this is a page that gives you insight into how you're expecting to realize the revenue throughout the duration of the project based on the schedule that you've put in place. So going back to our retainer-based project, we're getting 10,000 every month. Doesn't necessarily mean we can realize that because we haven't necessarily delivered that amount of work. So this gives me, if I scroll down here, I can see throughout the duration that I'm looking at, which projects are we working on? I get visibility of my scheduled revenue, my actual revenue, my earned value, and my projected. So this is showing me an overview of multiple different projects. What we can also do is jump through onto an individual project. So I've just jumped back onto that marketing retainer. And I can look at the exact same page, but just for this one individual project. So I can see the detail of when we're expecting to be recognizing the revenue throughout the duration of the project. And as I say, obviously, throughout August and September, we're invoicing 10,000 a month, but you can certainly see that we don't really hit that point until much later. So it gives you an indication of how you'll be burning through the work and how that will be resulting in revenue recognition. Okay, so the other example I mentioned that we would take a look at is a support-based contract. So I'm just going to jump over to another project here. So I'm now looking at a monthly support contract. Now I've structured this, I've structured the billing in the same way, because the scenario is I've agreed that I'm going to be charging the client $2,500 every month throughout the duration of the 12-month contract. But I've structured this differently from milestones and actions. So I've got one milestone for support, and then I've allocated 10 hours per month. And our agreement is that they don't get rolled over. So I've got this on the schedule now. So scenario being a support ticket comes in. So what I can do is go through to my cases here. Now you'll see my queue. I've got so this is obviously just a Salesforce object. I've got a case from Jane who works at Acme. So I'm going to click into that. I'll obviously be able to go backwards and forwards with her dealing with the case. But what I can do from a mission control perspective is actually record the time that it's taking me to deal with this support ticket. So you've got the ability to add this log time component directly to the case page. And what I can do here is say, okay, I'm working on, I know it's relating to this support contract. I'm going to be looking for the support milestone, and I'm going to be logging time against the August action. So I can put in notes here, resolved login issues, how long that took me, and then scroll down. I've obviously got the ability to record what I've done, which is what I'm doing here, or I can report on, I can use a start stop to actually track the time. So in this instance, I'm just going to go away and create that 1 hour time entry. So that's now used up one of the hours from our support contract on the August hours. So that was everything we wanted to cover off with you today. So I'll just open that up to any questions. So if you have any questions, feel free to put them into the Q&A or onto the chat. Okay, so got a question here around progress, being able to report to customers around progress. So we actually have a project, what we call a project status report, and that's a page that gives you the ability to report to your customer around the progress. I've actually got an option here, so let me show that to you. So I'll just go back to my retainer project. So this can actually be scheduled to go out on a weekly basis. I'm just going to jump in and take a look at it manually here. So this will give you, so you can set this up to be sent out to your project stakeholders. So that might be people internal to your business. It might also include your customers as well. So this is going to give you a summary of the project. So obviously what the project is, broken down into the milestones and the various actions. So obviously just showing high level information around when it's scheduled to happen, what status it's in, what progress have we made. The additional benefit of this report is you can also include some appendices as well. So as well as showing the status of the project, you can also include last week's time logs. So you're giving them an overview of what you've been working on. And as well as that, you could also include any outstanding issues or risks you want to make the customer aware of as well. So that's something that can certainly help you communicate to your customers to keep them up across with everything that's going on.
There's another question, Colin. I've got one here.
Yes.
About automatically sending invoices to clients. Can you do that?
Sure. Yeah. So so out of the box, we don't automatically send the invoice because we're making the assumption that you want to check it before you send it out. It can automatically be generated. So for example, on our retainer-based project, we'll be automatically generating those invoices. So then again, benefiting from being native to Salesforce, if you do want to automatically send it out, you can actually set that up via a workflow rule or a process builder to just send out an email notification to the customer associated with that project, and that can provide them with a link to the invoice. Okay, just had another question there. So does everyone have access to the timesheets, and can you set up who approves the timesheets? So basically anyone that has a mission control license will be able to have access to the timesheet. And you have the options of who approves time. So you can choose between the project owner and the person's individual line manager as well. So you can have both people approve it, or either one of them, and obviously the option of having neither, and it just defaults to approved.
Another question, Colin, can you sort of tailor that access depending on the individual?
Yeah, again, being built natively on the Salesforce platform means you're able to control access to mission control in the same way you would any other object in Salesforce. So that's going to be done through using things like profiles, permission sets, sharing rules, field level security. Okay, looks like that's all the questions we've got. So I'll just finish up. Obviously, thank you for your time. Hope you found it useful. Any questions that you've got, you can get in touch with either myself or Becky. There's our details, and hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.